All right, what's going on, everyone? Another episode, Midwest Multifamily Podcast with Steve Deering. Steve, thank you for coming on here. Appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I typically like to kind of start. I obviously know a little bit of your backstory, but many of our listeners will not. So just kind of where you are and where you found the entry point into real estate and kind of what your portfolio looks like now.
Yeah, that's a lot. So maybe I'll tell you how we got into it initially. So right around 2010, we probably picked the perfect entry point. Maybe 2000, 2009, I started looking, and that was right after the market collapse. And at the time, I was working. I was a engineering manager for a telecom company, and my wife had a good job. Her background's also in engineering, and we were doing well. We were doing relatively well. But at that point, I'm looking at these house prices and I'm thinking, this is unbelievable. We have an opportunity to maybe buy something and see if we can rent it out. And so we started looking, found a property, and I can tell you a lot about that one if you want to hear about it later. But the first property we bought it in cash, $125,000, 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath. How would you like to do that today? And it was like 5 years old. That was the other amazing thing. Almost a brand new house. But we bought that, and we were being so conservative, just kind of from our backgrounds. We were very, very conservative and kind of nervous about doing this because we didn't know anyone else that invested in real estate. And anyhow, I fixed it up, did the plumbing, electrical, painting. My wife helped me do the flooring. We did everything and listed it, and immediately people wanted to rent this thing for, like, at the time maybe it was $1,300 a month, which I thought was ridiculous. I thought no one's going to rent it for this, and but I listed it on that. What was that? It's an app that doesn't exist anymore. I think Zillow bought it, but it was Postlets, I think, something like that. I listed it. All these people wanted it, and I thought, well, we got to do this again. So that was kind of got the thing rolling for us. But to where we are today, we have. I probably should know to the number, but we have over 100 rentals. There was a point when I'm watching it when it was like 30, 40, 50, and I kept thinking 100. And we had 100, and I really, to be honest, I don't know. I could probably look at my spreadsheet and figure this out. But we have 100 plus residential rentals. We have storage units. We have a warehouse, a few storefronts. We kind of buy really, um, whatever makes sense. Um,
Yeah, maybe share, because obviously, as you mentioned, timing wise, things looked like they were on sale comparatively to where they were a few years prior
yeah.
to you purchasing. And you obviously didn't buy everything that you own in 2010. So maybe just share a little bit about some of those maybe initial purchases, but then also how you continue to scale as market conditions changed and what some of that process looked like.
Yeah. And we did have to do a couple of pivots. A few things happened along the way, but so that first property, it was interesting. So first time I saw this property, it, whoever had it, whoever lived in it, it was just like a disaster. It was a bank-owned property, and it smelled really bad. I don't know what they did to the walls, but it looked like, like a haunted house almost, a 5-year-old house. And at some point, my wife said, we should go back and look at that one more time. And we went back, and at that point, we said, let's take a swing at it. So 125,000. There's a few back and forths with the bank. Got it rented, and then we said, okay, that was easy. Let's do this again. And I think within the next year, the timing was interesting because banks were at that time they were getting stuck with a bunch of foreclosures. So we started offering on property after property, and we're offering like 140,000 for these, properties that are now $400,000 houses, and no one's taking. We're not hearing from the banks, and then I don't know what happened in the banking world, but in one week, 3 different banks said, "Yeah, that offer you gave us 6 months ago, we'll take it." And it was just like within a week, we had actually it was 4 accepted offers, and we're like, "Oh crap," you know, this wasn't part of our plan. We were hoping to do one, and a lot of those offers had expired. So we're looking at it, and we wanted all 4 houses. And at that point, we said, okay, we probably should find a bank to help us out, and we ended up taking three of them. We made it work, and we probably should have taken all four, at the time, but got those houses, cleaned them up, rented them out, and now we're like, okay, this is really cool, right? So now at that time we had four properties, and probably what even got us on this kick, we were doing well, we were doing fine with our two jobs, but it wasn't like that kind of next level where I was kind of thinking about, I have three daughters, I want to make sure they all, I can easily pay for their colleges and this and that, and that's really what got us rolling. We bought the one. I said, let's try to buy three, and then now we suddenly had four, and that was kind of our jumping. I think it really started rolling at that point.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned not really knowing anyone personally at that time point that maybe you could get guidance from or learn from. I think that's a big thing with most people is probably the analysis paralysis end. And luckily, 10, almost 15 years now have gone by. So there's a lot more education and access to that information out there. What made you feel comfortable and what did you kind of learn or what did you do to prepare yourself to kind of take the leap?
Um, you know, Probably a traditional person would say I read a bunch of books, but that wasn't the case. I made a spreadsheet, and kind of like I said, my background's electrical engineering. I think I like analyzing numbers, and it's not, there's not a lot of math. It's pretty simple math when you look at it. So I had my spreadsheet, and I knew what I wanted to look for in deals. And um, we're in a suburb of Columbus, and it would be hard to mess up real estate, buying real estate back then. But I think we felt comfortable when we looked at the numbers. Like you said, we were talking earlier, the principal, interest, tax, insurance, and estimating maintenance and capex, and we just knew there was money to be made at that point. Um,
Got it.
yeah,
Awesome. So as you continue to scale to obviously over 100 rentals now, over the past 13 years, call it going on 14. Obviously a long journey, I'm sure, and
yeah.
sometimes it probably feels like it flew by. But what are some of the things I like to think about habits and things that we can implement on a daily, weekly basis that over a long enough consistent time period get the goal? Anything that comes to mind that you did consistently that aided in this?
Um, you know that Probably some basic things. I mean, I think first you want um, being you have to be frugal at some point, right? Just depending on your background. My wife and I, we came from legitimately, I would say, poor backgrounds, and so something important for us was to have save money, you know, have good spending habits. So I think that is set the foundation for us to, 125,000 the first property to buy in cash. A lot of people weren't our age at that time weren't sitting on that kind of money to take a swing at something that was potentially risky. So I think that's the basis. But then to scale, I think probably something that's important is to um, know the market, study the market, know every deal that comes up, network, all those kind of basic things that you hear in these type of, landlord forums or podcasts. It's really it sounds simple, but that's really it, meeting
Definitely.
people, like you were telling me you picked up that 36 unit, it was just a little bit of a networking connection right there. And
Huge. Absolutely.
yeah, you have to tell me about that more later, but I think those habits of knowing your market, know everything that's available, whether it's listed, not listed, on LoopNet, on Realtor.com, wholesalers, other investors. People are at different times in their real estate career, right? Some people may be offloading, some people are growing, and um, so I think that's really it. Those are kind of
Definitely.
those habits can really take you to a different level.
Yeah, and I think maybe the misconception that people have is to do one of those things all out for a day or a week and hey, nothing good happened versus the hey, if you just take, 30 minutes a day and underwrite or look at deals on the market, but you do that every day for months, all of a sudden you start seeing patterns and even now in our business, I'm starting to recognize when something hits the market right away. Oh, like that's worth looking at, and when yeah, we're all set. And That only comes with time and consistency. So I think a lot of people don't maybe realize how much time over a extended period of time you have to continuously do those things. So super
Yeah.
important.
No, and I'll just comment too. I think you're exactly right. You want to underwrite deals. You can maybe underwrite 30 deals before you find the one you want, right? But once you do enough of those, reality, if I buy a property, if you told me you had a property where it was, if it's in my bubble and what it is, I could make a deal with it. I don't even need to look at the paper, right? And you're probably at that point now too, but you just underwrite enough deals, know what you're looking for, and know what makes sense. And it's not so risky at that point. But if you love it, you're gonna just live it, right? And that's kind of for me. It was almost an addiction of looking for deals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe a tip there too for anyone listening is to, even if you know a deal's on LoopNet or you know it's not a good deal or whatever, still take the time to underwrite it because you will see some of those maybe assumptions that if you don't already have a portfolio, what does repairs and maintenance cost? Well, if you look at 30 deals and get an idea of what it's costing other people, it's not always going to be a perfect, that's what it's going to cost you, but at least you have some sort of reference. So I still continue to underwrite bad deals sometimes just to get an idea of what things are costing other
Yeah.
people. So I think
Yeah.
that's definitely helped me.
Yeah, I think that's great. And a lot of times you hear people say if it's on LoopNet, it's not a deal, right? I bought a property off of LoopNet, at least one that I could think of, and I think it was a great deal, and you know, y- I would exhaust all the tools available to you.
Absolutely. As far as, you guys have obviously scaled quite a bit. I'm curious what maybe your long-term outlook looks like and I guess what you're kind of doing currently to get there. If you have anything to share there.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, these last couple of years have been different for me because I retired officially from the company I worked for, and probably my real focus. I haven't really been killing myself to grow the business. It's almost been like a timeout, but my focus last couple of years is really. I have three teenage daughters. They were all in high school last year, and one of them just graduated. But my focus is like I just want to be around them as much as possible. I feel very fortunate to be in a place of it's kind of like that perfect Venn diagram middle where it's like health, wealth, and time. So I think I have probably these last couple years I haven't been that aggressive looking for deals, but that doesn't mean we've completely sat on the sideline. So we have been
Right.
doing flips, and I enjoy that. We were talking before the call here, but I'm having a lot of fun with the flips because making money. It's fast money. I love keeping the guys busy that we work with, and that's really kind of been our thing is making money at flips, which it's been really good money. I love buy and hold, but I'm enjoying the flips, but keeping everyone busy too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you foresee now having kind of gone through and truly seen a market cycle that um, a obviously we're both in the Midwest, specifically
Yeah.
Central Ohio market outside of Columbus, which is, you know, doesn't see the huge upswings, but also hopefully doesn't see any major downswings as well. Do you think there might be a prompt ahead that gets you to more aggressively buy, or would you say comfortable kind of where you've been able to
Well,
grow to?
I'm probably I'm actually looking at a few deals right now in Ohio and Kentucky, some like 50, 60, 70 unit kind of deals. So I do want to I want to add some buy and hold to my portfolio, and we've bought a few in the last we bought added 3 units this year. I mean, it's not like we're completely not doing anything, but I would like to get a couple bigger um, properties, and I plan to do that. I kind of want to do a balance, and along with balancing our lifestyle too. That's kind of the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you mentioned, well, first off, you live outside of Columbus and you started with knowing the market. And so that typically for most people, it's easiest to start with your own backyard. as far as being able to grow now, but continuing to look in the Midwest, I know you mentioned, Kentucky. What do you think specifically is interesting about the Midwest compared to some other markets, and why do you continue to invest in these
Um,
areas?
well, I mean, the Midwest attracts folks like you, right, from the coast. It is Central Ohio specifically is super hot. Appreciation has been really high here, but you can actually still buy stuff that cash flows. You know, if you're someone that lives in California, or my wife's originally from Boston. If you look there, you're not going to find any opportunities like what you're going to see here. What you're going to pay for a house there, you can probably buy a 15-unit building here, right? It's reality. Um, and there's so much investment in Central Ohio. If you drive around, it reminds me of, I was in Austin maybe 3, 4, or 5 years ago, and you would drive in Austin, you see all these cranes. That's what you see in Columbus, Ohio now. You probably know about the Intel facility that's coming, right? $20 billion investment, potentially up to $100 billion, and that's just the initial investment, right? So all that is coming in, and you feel there's a lot of inertia here for sure. So I like it. I mean, the times I've looked at potentially building a multifamily, it never made sense, but it's kind of when you're getting at a point now, it's like, it never made sense to me, probably from my cautious background. Um, but now it kind of, the numbers are there, right? So I think there's a lot of value. But when you say Midwest, it's like you got to be I think a little more specific. I get people offering deals in Cleveland and Detroit, and maybe there
Right.
are deals and people are making money there, but it's not Central Ohio, or maybe even like Cincinnati area. I think it's you really got to focus in on the areas and
Definitely. No, absolutely. And we certainly like to look at, Kentucky and Indiana as well, specifically those kind of secondary markets. Now that we know outside of Columbus and some of the, county seats of surrounding counties where you're not so competitive with maybe some of that California or Boston, coast
they're
money
coming.
that,
They're
but
coming.
yeah, absolutely. And it's, nice to see that we can look in other states as well to try and
Yeah,
replicate what we found in some of those markets. But yeah, for
yeah,
us, I mean, the cash flow, and I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but cash flow really being the buffer of never being forced to sell in undesirable times
yeah,
so that you can reap the rewards of some of that equity creation. So
yeah,
that's why we've obviously been steered towards the market, and Ethan, my partner, obviously being outside of Columbus, having that market acute knowledge is certainly aiding in our ability to
yeah.
make sound decisions. So
Yeah, and I think you have a good partner local. That only helps. And I think, like, like you're saying, some of these secondary, exurbs, how whatever you want to call them, they're good places to look. And if I look at our timing, there was a time when I only invested in, you know, our suburb of Columbus. And then guess what? Maybe 10 years ago, all the REITs started coming in and they started buying. And that's kind of what pushed me to look at some of these other locations. And, you start moving further out. But now what I'm even seeing um, in some of these excerpts, you're starting to see some of this people buying sight unseen from California. So you got to like kind of stay ahead of the curve a little bit, and when we initially started buying, we were buying 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,000, 2,500 square foot homes. Those are amazing, but they're really not there now for you know.
right.
And then we pivoted to buy condos, and I bought condos in this little condo community. I bought 5 really quick in this community, and then guess what? Other investors started coming. I felt like I was on the leading edge of that, and actually, I'll tell you a funny thing. So I'm selling a condo in this community. At one point I had 5. I told my wife we should buy them all probably 8 years ago. I was buying these condos for $80,000, and I'm selling this one for 230,000.
Wow.
Next week. Um, but I thought back then I would just see people while I'm out there like, hey, they're asking me to buy their property because they were so nervous about it falling apart and the value collapsing. But um, Yeah, you got to know, stick to your numbers, be able to pivot. Like I said, we went single family condos, and we started buying duplexes, multifamily, and yeah. But once you start underwriting deals, that you can underwrite anything. It really, when it comes to real estate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you could either go back and start all over again, if there's anything that you would do differently, or if you were giving advice to someone just starting out, what you might
Yeah.
share with them.
Yeah, this one's easy. I would have started sooner. I would have bought more. I probably would not have sold any properties I've sold. But I think what you're doing, it's really cool, Kevin, you and Ethan. It, this sooner the better. The sooner the better. Especially for the buy and hold, when you have a nice long runway to gain that appreciation over time, gain that cash flow over time. I think it's unbeatable. You can really
Maybe,
position it.
yeah, maybe speak to the conservative you when you were first starting, where that person that's on edge. Ooh, do I actually, they're trying to maybe in that analysis paralysis where they're trying to dot every I and cross every T. Do you think there was something that kind of pushed you over the edge beyond just understanding the numbers, or comfortability, or something there?
Yeah, to be honest, everyone was selling back then. Um, when I talk to people, tell them if that house that I bought, I know it's worth 400,000. I still have it today. At that time, no one wanted to buy that house. That bank was begging me to take it. I think I offered them like at 115, and they wanted 145, and they kept coming back. And so at some point, I'm probably a little more of a risk taker, even though I'm talking about how conservative I am. Compared to my wife, we're kind of a push pull a little bit. But when I first had the idea to buy something like that as an investment property, we probably didn't waste much time. It just felt like it was such a safe thing to take a flyer on that house. Um, and I think it's hard to speak for someone because you don't know what their circumstances are.
Right.
We had money that we could, take a flyer on that house. But you have to, I think you got to jump in. You got to take that leap of faith, but you don't take it without doing the underwriting. You don't buy the first house you see. It's like they say, don't swing at the first pitch, right? So you kind of got to know what you're doing, but if you feel pretty confident that you've done your due diligence, you've done enough studying, whatever the case is, go for it and don't look back. And if it works, do it again and again and again. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. There's a certain point where there's only so much you can learn through reading or podcasts, and
Yeah.
and there's lessons I think that you have to learn by taking action, which we've a big one that specifically stands out on just buying a single family. One of our first projects was holding costs. Like
Yeah.
holding costs, line item, 5 grand. We had no idea, and holding costs are not 5 grand.
Yeah.
So, but just little things like that. I think you sometimes maybe have to learn the hard way, but it's going to accelerate you that much faster by just taking action and learning those things while taking the action. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I, yeah. And I think, you hear it all the time, but you don't have to hit the home run the first time, right? It's like you got to get up to bat and take a swing at it, and even if you break even or lose a little bit of money, you're ahead. You've learned a lot, right?
Absolutely. I'm curious now, obviously in a pretty stable spot in your business, but beyond, I'm sure looking at more deals and opportunities, is there anything else that you're looking for in your business right now?
Um, I would like to scale it. Reality. I look back and I'm like, oh, I wish I'd have bought this and this and this, but um, we're in a good place. I would like to keep buying some buy and holds. I would like to. I have a partner, which we've never taken on a partner before, but I have a partner that we do the flips with. Super valuable partner, and he has a really big business. He's got a huge business, but he's kind of like me, where he's enjoying doing the flips. But we would like to ramp that up, um, where we're doing if maybe do one a month or maybe even increase it. Um, but yeah, I think we kind of enjoy the flip, but I do want to find couple of these big fish out there on the buy and hold, and um, you know, I think that's really where we're at. But for me personally, the business is important, but I feel fortunate to say, but we're kind of at a point where we don't need anything else. You know, we don't need to grow anymore. We're in a point where we're just, we could ride it out like this and ride off in the sunset, but I think we're still young enough, we want to keep going and
Yeah,
try.
absolutely. I think that it keeps you active too, and I'm sure
Yeah.
it's exciting. I mean, I love just seeing a new wholesale deal pop up, and oh, this is
Yeah.
interesting, and it's, I don't know, a little bit gamified in a way, but it
Right. Yeah. I'm with
keeps
you.
you
Yeah.
excited, and I don't know, I enjoy that. So,
It's a little bit of
um,
a rush, right? When you
yeah,
get a
absolutely.
property. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Steve, it definitely is, I think, insightful to kind of hear. A lot of people have gotten into real estate in just the last couple of years, so it's very cool to hear your story and some of the properties you were able to purchase that have now, 3x in value, if not more,
Yeah.
over the past 13 years. And I think that just speaks to the power of real estate in general. And, if you're in the game long enough, you're going to see good things happen. Um, if anyone wants to kind of reach out to you or connect, is there a good place they can do that?
Yeah. Probably old school if they want to shoot me a message on Deering Investments at gmail.com. That's probably the easiest. I don't know if my
Awesome.
name is in the notes. Um, Yeah, I have a Twitter, I have Instagram. I'm not that active. I have a Facebook. I haven't checked it. Don't send me any messages, but definitely feel free. You could probably find me there, but probably Gmail if someone really wants to shoot the crap and talk deals. Hit me up on deeringinvestments at gmail.com. And you know,
Awesome. Yeah, I'll
I
definitely
love
have
to
that.
talk to younger investors, older investors, whatever the case is. I'd love to hear the stories, or if I can, add any value. Um, I'm definitely
Most
here.
certainly. If anyone listening is going to send Steve a deal, make sure you send it to us first. So.
Easy.
Well, awesome. Well, seriously, Steve, it was great having you on, and I hope to maybe do kind of the plan with the podcast is to do some deep dives into podcast or into like specific topics. So I'd love to maybe have you on again and
Yeah.
really go into like underwriting and how you evaluate and stuff. But thank you again. It was great to
Yeah.
kind of hear some of your insights.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah. Appreciate it.